Welcome back to Squawk Box this morning. Dr. Anthony Fauci expected to deliver a dire warning when he testifies before the Senate Health Committee this morning. In an email to the New York Times, he said his main message will be of the danger involved in reopening the country too early. The White House plan involves 3 phases with criteria for each one, such as a downward trajectory in positive cases and robust contact tracing. Fauci told the Times, quote, "If we skip over the checkpoints in the guidelines to open America again, then we risk the danger of multiple outbreaks throughout the country. This will not only result in needless suffering and death, but would actually set us back on our quest to return to normal." Dr. Fauci's message also underscoring one of the main concerns for businesses as states reopen, potential liability. This afternoon, the Senate Judiciary Committee will hold a hearing on expanding protections for businesses. Testing, of course, key to all of this, a key factor in reopening the economy, and the president gave an update on Monday. The administration plans to distribute $11 billion to states, territories, and tribes to bolster their testing capacity. The White House also announcing the country has performed over 9 million tests so far. I want to bring in Dr. Scott Gottlieb this morning, former FDA commissioner and a CNBC contributor. He also sits on the boards of Illumina and Pfizer. And I'll put the question to you, Dr. Gottlieb. Is Dr. Anthony Fauci right when he says we're opening too soon?
Well, look, we're going to see cases go up now that we're reopening. If you look at states that have reopened, Alabama, South Dakota, Texas, I put some data out on Twitter last night. You've seen an uptick in cases, and that was expected. We know cases are going to go up as we start to resume activity. I think the challenge here is that we're resuming activity off of a high baseline of spread. We have more cases than we thought we'd be having at this point. And so I'm not surprised that Tony's going to be making that statement today before the Senate. Remember, his testimony more than likely went through the White House. He wouldn't be delivering testimony before Congress if he didn't clear it through the Office of Management and Budget. So they're aware of what he's going to be saying today. The bottom line is a lot of states are now reopening activity against a backdrop that doesn't meet the criteria that the White House set out in terms of when it would be safe to reopen. But the other piece of this is most of us assumed that by May we'd be seeing sustained decline in new cases. We didn't think that going into May, after a month of mitigation, we'd be at a sort of plateau where we wouldn't be seeing steady declines in new cases. So we're in a tough spot right now because keeping the government shut down for, more weeks well into June or May, it's going to be very difficult on this nation. There's a lot of hardship on the other side of this. So this is a very difficult spot we're in because we are reopening against more spread than we presumed.
Doctor, walk us through a little bit of the timeline, because the other component of this is there are governors around the country that haven't opened yet that are looking at this almost grand state-by-state experiment to see what happens. The question is, what should they be looking for? Because when you start to think about the timeline, if 2 or 3 weeks from now you don't see a massive spike, is that the go-ahead? Is that the green light to other states to say, okay, keep on going? Or do you need to wait longer to try to say, okay, if there is going to be reinfection, it's going to take how long?
Well, look, there's no magic number here, but the White House said that they wanted to see 2 weeks of sustained declines in new cases. What we said in the report that we put out was you wanted to see a sustained decline in new cases and then wait 2 weeks. You want to wait one replication cycle. But the bottom line is you want to see at least a couple of weeks of sustained declines in cases. You want to know that you're on a downward trajectory on the epidemic curve. We're not on that in many states. The only part of the country really that has experienced that on the whole is the Pacific Northwest and parts of California, and then the Northeast. New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And in fact, states that have been hard hit, like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, are setting a timeline for reopening for later this month, but they're on a trajectory to do that. But they're seeing those kinds of sustained declines. In other parts of the country, the Southeast, Southwest, the Sun Belt, you're not seeing that. Either you're seeing a plateauing of cases, maybe you were seeing some declining cases in states like Georgia and Florida when they made the decision to reopen, but certainly not a sustained decline where you saw weeks of decline. So they're reopening against a backdrop where there's still a lot of spread in those states. You're going to see cases go back up. What they're going to be looking at very carefully, though, now is hospitalizations, not necessarily new cases, because we're testing a lot more now, so we're capturing a lot more cases. The positivity rate's actually going down a lot, which is a really good sign. So looking just at new cases doesn't tell you what's happening if you're testing a lot more. You want to look at hospitalizations. That's a much more objective measure of whether or not you're experiencing new infections or a higher rate of infection. The only challenge with looking at hospitalizations is it's a lagging indicator. It's about a week from when you actually had a spike in new cases, that you'll see a spike in hospitalizations because there's a delay in time to hospitalization. So we're always going to be looking backward a little bit when we're looking at hospitalizations.